What's going on, guys? This is Yes, I Read That, and today I am reviewing Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. This book has been tremendous, but I want to preface this review with one thing. The first half of this is spoiler free. I will not spoil anything. The second half will contain some spoilers though, so don't keep watching if you still want to read the book. The Way of Kings has been an amazing book. The story is incredible. I want to talk about a few aspects of this book now, and the first one is the world. The Way of Kings takes place in an amazing world. The universe is called the Cosmere universe. I've reviewed Mistborn before, which is also written by the same author, Brandon Sanderson, and Mistborn had this amazing world, great world building, and everything was planned from the beginning. And this is something I really enjoy when authors do. So I expected the same here coming into The Way of Kings, but in my opinion it definitely surpassed the world of Mistborn for me personally. This book is a fantasy book, and obviously the world it takes place in has magic and weird animals, weird powers, and its design is amazing and spectacular at places, but also so detailed and cute at other places. The world is ravaged by these big high storms, is what they call them, and these are basically storms that bring mud, and you have to take shelter, otherwise the mud will get so crazy in the storm. It's basically like a huge sandstorm, and probably strong though, and destroys everything in its path. But we also have these spren, which is like a kind of fairy, I would say, and these are small spirits that float around and that we don't know a lot about, maybe affect the environment, maybe don't, and these spren get attracted by stuff like death, but also by stuff like creativity, by honor, and this is something really creative, and I didn't see this idea in any other books, and I really enjoyed that one. In this world we have the kingdom of Alethkar, I think it's called. The Alethi people live here, and they are at war in the Shattered Plains with another race that just randomly appeared and declared war of them, and they are called the Parshendi. And the weird thing is that they have been at war for 6 years, so the war kind of started normalizing and people started just living their normal noble life in there. Soldiers started getting more lax, and it seems like the Parshendi aren't that great of a threat. They only meet with them and battle with them when some special event happens and a gem heart appears somewhere on the plains. So it feels like a very weird war, and it doesn't really feel like a threat, and not to the characters in the book as well. So it's a bit weird. The magic in this book is based on gems and Stormlight, and the name of the series is the Stormlight Archive, so that one is pretty self-explanatory. The Stormlight is fueling some gems, which they call spheres. This is also the currency used in the world. They also use these gemstones to fuel their weapons and armor and some fabrials they produce from them. So the world is incredibly thought out and incredibly huge, so there's always new stuff to discover, and we get this steady discovery in the book, which makes it amazing. But the world is not the only good thing in this book. The magic system is amazing. I won't really go into it because I don't want to spoil something yet, but I will say a bit more about it in the spoiler section. The other incredible thing in this book is the story. The story is great, it's very intriguing, and it's very addictive actually. And I found that weird because when I will tell you a bit more about the characters, there's no real threat except for one of the characters, and there's not this end of the world situation where we know that anybody could die, like there's not the big pressure, but the characters and the story in itself are very interesting, and it's just very addictive and keeps you at the story, and you want to know more and more. At least that's what I felt. So even though there's not a big threat in the story, we still get to experience it, and it still feels very gripping and even addictive. I finished this book so fast that I'm not sure. I was wondering at times. I mean, I know that these characters will not die soon because it's pretty obvious from the book, but still it was so interesting to read about them. Overall, this book follows 3 distinct storylines and sometimes focuses on other characters as well. The 3 distinct ones are First of all, we have Kaladin, who is a slave, and he is enslaved by the High Princes, is what they are called, and he is basically struggling because this enslavement was a betrayal. He's a very talented, very intelligent character and tries to get free, tries to make the best of the situation, and he's also very honorable. And that's one of the first key themes in this book. This book touches on very interesting themes. This book touches on honor, on justice, and in some other aspects even on philosophy and religion a lot. And this book is really intriguing because it's not only this fantasy world and you can escape and get some new ideas and see some creativity, some epic fights, some action. This is also pretty intriguing because it also enters the realm of philosophy and of religion, and questioning the religion in this world, which can very well be translated to questioning our religion. So yeah, the Kaladin storyline is very epic, and it focuses on him basically trying to make the best of his situation and basically trying to help everybody he can, because he is the son of a surgeon. We get to know his backstory and his development. The story of Kaladin is what was the most interesting for me, and it was also covered a great deal in this book, which I really enjoyed. So I will tell you a bit more about it in the spoiler section. Another part is Shallan and Jasnah, which is Shallan is a girl, well, young adult. Well, basically she is trying to get the ward of Jasnah, but she has some hidden thoughts about this, and she's trying to take advantage of Jasnah because she wants to help her family, who is in a pretty bad dilemma in this book. She goes on, and we realize her struggle to get the ward and to the way she interacts with Jasnah, and this is also the storyline where philosophy and religion become a great part, because she also makes friends with a Ardent, which in this book is basically a religious figure, and they devote themselves to praise their god. The third storyline, and although this might be a bit slower, I enjoyed it quite a lot, is of Dalinar Kholin, who is the uncle of the king, and he is a high prince. He is a bit older, and when he was younger he was called the Blackthorn, and he was basically the king's warlord. So he destroyed his enemies, and he was this ruthless warlord. But now that he's older, he realizes that some things should be seen a bit more different, and he is a character where the justice theme is very strong, and also the honor theme is very, very strong. And he is plagued by some visions. Whenever a high storm comes and he is hiding inside, seeking shelter from the storm, he gets some vision. And obviously this is not something normal in the world, and everybody thinks he's going crazy. He himself is even starting to take note of it, and his whole family is getting undermined. He's worrying about his mental state, and I think it's a very interesting struggle. Someone who has been this great person and this ruthless one, and everybody respected him. But now he's struggling with some mental issues. Also, he gets a lot of philosophical ideas from one book he reads, and that book is called The Way of Kings, ironically the title of this book as well. And this book gradually changes. He follows the codes and what this book says very closely, which basically demands honor, and it demands stuff like you should never command your underlings to do something you would not do yourself. So these are very honorable codes, and he's following them. And this is not something that fits with the backstory of him, the Blackthorn, and this is why people around him are starting to think him a coward, think him weak, basically giving him miscredit. But he just shrugs it off. He doesn't care what other people think, and I think that's a great thing about his character as well. I really enjoyed that. So we get to see his struggle and all the situations, the interactions with the other lords, and his inner conflicts are very interesting. The last character is Szeth. Szeth is an assassin. Well, he's not an assassin, he's a truthless, and that basically means the person who is his master can command anything, and he has to obey. And it just turns out that his masters often want him to kill someone, and he is the perfect killer, because he has this magic weapon called a shard blade, which is very important in this book as well. All the important high princes try to get sharp blades, and you can win them by dueling someone else. So he has this weapon, and he also has some magical abilities that we don't really know a lot about, and he's the perfect killer. And his inner conflict is very interesting as well, because he has to obey the commands. However, he himself knows that it's so deep wrong to kill people, and he basically detests himself for what he has to do. So his inner struggles are very interesting, and also kind of touch on honor, because he has to honor his oath to follow the master, but he also doesn't want to kill so many people. So yeah, a deep struggle inside. Overall, I have to say this book was amazing, and I definitely recommend you get it and read it, because I think the world is amazing, the story is intriguing, and will be so much more amazing in the following books, because this is only the first book of a trilogy. And I believe that Brandon Sanderson created an amazing world and amazing characters. However, the one thing I didn't like is there never is a real threat in this book, and what I mean by that is the Parshendi fights. This is not something that Dalinar is in danger of, because we know that they have these gemheart fights, but we know that a person with a shard plate and a shard blade, which is the great armor and the great weapon, the magic weapon they have, cannot really be touched by normal soldiers. It can happen, but it's so highly unlikely that we know there is no threat. Shallan and Jasnah, the other story, is they are completely safe. They're in a library all the time, and all they do is study. So no threat here. The only person who is in danger a lot of times is Kaladin, and with him we can figure out pretty fast that there's something special about this guy, and I won't spoil much, but it's pretty obvious that he will play a role later in the books. So this all was very intriguing and very interesting. But I will give this book an 8 out of 10. I would have loved to give this book like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, because everything has been amazing. But it felt too much like a build-up for other books. There was great action-packed scenes, there was great tension, but the great threat, the great actions, it was all built up. We didn't see those crazy abilities a lot of times, and yeah, not these amazing battles, although there was some pretty cool battles, I have to say. But yeah, that's just my opinion. It felt too much like a build-up and not like the actual execution. So all in all, I highly recommend you read it. This book is very satisfying to read and intriguing, great themes in this book. So yeah, get it. And now I will start the spoiler section. Please turn the video off if you intend to read this, because it will not be as enjoyable if you are spoiled now. So the first thing I want to mention is the magic system, because there's different kinds of magic going on in here, and I thought they were all pretty interesting. The first one we get to see is actually in the very first chapter. It's when Szeth uses his abilities to bind stuff together, which I think is referred to surge binding later, and this means he can stick stuff together, he can lash himself to walls and run on the walls, run on the ceiling. He can this way jump from very high and then dash himself to the wall and just walk down the wall. And this is very interesting magic system. He can avert arrows and crazy magic system. But it's not the only one. There's also the soul casting, which can transform anything basically to something else. We don't know a lot about soul casting yet, but what we've seen is, for example, it can transform things into stone. You can create the stone barracks they used in the army with soul casting. You can create food with soul casting. So we don't know about it, but we know that you can create stuff with it and basically transform things. But we also saw that you can use it to fight when Jasnah displayed some interesting fight. Jasnah actually turned a man into crystal, and she turned a man into fire. So that can be very impressive. And then she created some lightning to slay 2 other people. It's insane. So it can be used to fight, and we don't know a lot about it yet. And as the book goes on, we also get to see that Kaladin has the surge binding abilities, and he slowly realizes that he can suck up Stormlight, be flush with this energy, and it basically gives him power and speed, but it also gives him the ability to stick stuff to walls and walk up walls, although he didn't figure out it in the book. So this is also why it kind of feels like a build-up. He didn't even realize all his potential. In the very end of the book, he got his powers, and that was epic. When he rushed to the help of the army in that last battle, and he realized that he has to honor the oaths of the old Radiants. Then he rushes in and he screams this oath: strength before weakness. The strong people have to protect the weak people, and he just explodes. Epic, really epic. I really enjoyed that. But it was a build-up. So I was feeling a bit like, okay, so he can use his power now, cool, but he doesn't even know he can walk on walls, or he doesn't know what he can do. And he will try these things in the second book, we know that from a dialogue at the very end, but still, it feels a bit sad. I mean, I read 1,000 pages book, man. Why can't you just show me Kaladin walking on a wall? You know? Okay, anyways. Something I also thought very interesting was when Kaladin, who has been hurt by a light eye and he has been betrayed by a bright lord, he really distrusts any light eye. And we have justice and honor as key themes here, and he always hates how Sadeas treats the bridgeman as mere meat for his army, as bait for the enemy so his soldiers don't get shot. And when he first hears of Dalinar and they say that he's honorful, he always keeps his oath. He can't believe it, obviously, because he experienced important people always lie. And this is something so deeply ingrained that he often hears about Dalinar, and every time he sees something that he does that is very honorful and very respectable, he's like, no, that's just another act. And then in the very end of the book, Dalinar actually gives up his shard weapon, his shard blade, for getting the bridge burners to safety, because they saved his life and saved his army. That is just such a powerful gesture. This is what was very satisfying about this book and what I really enjoyed in the end. So all I can say is I really enjoyed this book. I am really looking forward to reading the next one, and I'm really happy to see that the third book will be released very soon, and I will definitely review that one as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment if you liked it, and leave some suggestions what I can do better. Leave some thoughts on the book or on the book you're currently reading. I'm always interested. So yeah, see you next time. Bye!